A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 23 of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. There is a lot to discuss after the Buckeyes' Week 1 win over Indiana. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by Jordan Dalton and Nick Leisure. Gentlemen, how you doing on this holiday evening?
Good. All right, I guess. I mean, just ready to break down the game and get after it. I know we got some good takes tonight, so should be a lot to talk about. A lot went down on Saturday, even though it might not have seemed like it, but there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I think it went a little differently than we were expecting, and most of Buckeye Nation was expecting. So, yeah, we'll get into it and hopefully hash some things out.
Yep, there is a lot to talk about, especially regarding the quarterback situation that we saw over the weekend. But, of course, before we get into any of that, guys, be sure, once again, drop a like on tonight's video. Really help that YouTube algorithm grow and help Network 216 grow. But also subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. It's completely free. Subscribe. And we are so close to 2,000 subscribers. We're less than 100 away. And we can't get there without your help. So we just ask that you would subscribe to the channel as we try to reach that goal. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast is proud to be a partner also of Homage Athletic Apparel. You're not going to find any gear out there that is better looking as far as retro, as far as being just comfortable for you to wear year-round. Nothing better. Really soft fabric that they have for all their shirts, sweatshirts, shorts. They have everything you're looking for. They have some brand new Ohio State clothing lines that includes a retro tee with this year's team players on that. You're going to want to check that out. Woody Hayes, they got new Woody Hayes Buckeye gear, but also anything you're looking for the rest of the family. Babies, kids. JD knows he's gotten his newborn son some Ohio State gear already. So you guys want to make sure you check that out. If you're a brand new customer to Homage, you can actually get 15% off your order if you just enter your email address and sign up for emails from Homage. So go to homage.com and tell them Network 216 sent you. And guys, Ohio State did win on Saturday, believe it or not. You never would know. That's based off social media. But the Buckeyes ended up winning 23-3. Before we get into stats, if I told you Ohio State was going to win 23-3 on Saturday, how surprised would you be on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm going to give it a 6. I think we did talk about, I know I did when we were breaking down our score predictions, that I thought the offense might struggle a little bit. I didn't see it to the extent of 23 points. I think my score prediction was 42, just because I thought that the running game would be there and our playmakers would make more plays. We didn't really have a single big play the entire game. So not super surprised, but I know some people were expecting C.J. Stroud to go out there and dress for the Buckeyes this weekend, but that just wasn't the case. So, yeah, I'll give it a 6.
I'll probably go 8.5, 9, because I know my score prediction was up there. I did not think they were going to struggle this much. Like Jordan said, I should have known better and expected some struggles, new quarterback, new offensive line. I mean, so I just didn't think they would struggle as much as they did, to be honest. But, I mean, I guess I should have known better being week 1 with all the new stuff that's gone into it this year.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to go with a 9 as well. All of our score predictions are pretty high, but if you told me that the offense was only going to put up 23 points, I would have thought you're absolutely nuts. But that's exactly what we saw on Saturday. So Kyle McCord's debut did not go, I would say, as a lot of us were hoping. He was 20 of 33, 239 yards. He averaged 7.2 yards per attempt, had 1 interception, quarterback rating of 78.1. Devin Brown played 1 series. He was 1 of 3 for -2 yards, had 1 carry for -3 yards. So first off, guys, what were your takeaways from ultimately the quarterback decision that Ryan Day had? Because he said that this was neck and neck. Both guys were going to play. But what it looked like on Saturday is that Kyle McCord is going to be the starter moving forward, and Devin Brown currently is the backup quarterback. What were your guys' thoughts on how Ryan Day really made his decision with the starting quarterback job?
I'll take this one, Nick. I think Ryan Day really needs to pick a quarterback because we saw majority Kyle McCord, but we saw Devin Brown enter the game at like one of the worst times to put a backup quarterback into the football game after Kyle McCord just threw an interception. Rhythm is all jacked up, and then you throw in this quarterback rushing 3 times, which everybody on the defense is keying on him to rush because that's number one thing in the scouting report. Super athletic quarterback can run the football. And so they just rush it with 3 times, nothing, and then punt, and then Devin Brown gets back in the game, last drive of the game. And I just thought the rhythm was all off. I think Ryan Day needs to stick with the guy, let him work through some adversity, and then if it doesn't work out after a few games, then you can go to your backup quarterback. Like TJ said on the podcast before the show, we can't. It's going to be trouble if Ohio State runs this 2 quarterback system, or they're putting a quarterback in the game, disrupting rhythm with this offense, because Kyle McCord, especially, but just younger quarterbacks in general, I think rhythm is a really big thing for offenses with a young quarterback. And we actually saw it in this game, but it was on Indiana's side. Indiana actually got in a really good rhythm where they were running the ball and they were mixing in the pass really well with their second string quarterback, Jackson, I think his name was. And they really had a good drive to end the half. They got on the board. They made the score 7-3. And it just looked a little bit different on Indiana's side than it did all day for Ohio State. So I think Ryan Day needs to really assess that situation and stick with McCord going forward.
Nick, if you want to go, I can go unless you want to go.
No, I think Jordan made a lot of good points there. I agree. I mean, I feel like the timing was just really bad because, obviously he throws a pick and then it's like, oh, okay, now you're getting benched. But it's just like a weird time in the game too, because it just happened to be like the end of the first quarter when he threw his pick kind of deal. So it's like, I don't know if it was Day's thought always like Devin Brown's getting the first possession in the second quarter, or if it just happened to be like a fluke kind of deal. But yeah, I think McCord's the guy. You just got to roll with him. And like George said, he's gonna have to come over some adversity just because this was like his first start as being the guy. Like, you are QB1 at Ohio State. So, that comes with a ton of pressure. So, you just got to roll with it. And I'm not really too worried about it.
And I would say sorry, TJ, this is like another thing that I saw was they started the game off like extremely conservative with the football, like Jim Tressel level conservative. And then when they opened it up, Kyle McCord was able to make some throws. He's got a really good arm, like surprisingly good. He had that one throw when he was rolling to his left and he threw it. And it was like NFL guys can't make that throw. So, and some of them, and he did it pretty effortlessly. So I think he's got the arm talent. They just need to open the offense up. But that's also like, how much does Ryan Day trust Kyle McCord? So I don't know, man.
With Kyle McCord, the thing that is really kind of irritating, I would say, at least from the fan base perspective, if you guys recall, a lot of fans, not us particular, but a lot of fans were calling for CJ Stroud's head after the game against Minnesota. Now he ended up throwing 4 touchdowns, but either way, he didn't look great in that game for the most part.
I wouldn't say we were calling for his head after the Minnesota game. We were calling for his head after the Oregon game.
Yeah, I would say both though, because there were fans that wanted CJ Stroud benched at halftime of that Minnesota.
The Minnesota game, there was a minority, but I think I agree with Jordan. After the Oregon game was when everyone was like, "Dude, this guy is not it," and it's obvious. Which was wild.
I mean, so here's what I want to ask you guys, because there is a good portion of the fan base out there that is already determined to make these just these thoughts that Kyle McCord just sucks, that this guy's a junior, so clearly he's not a good quarterback. Like, he's been in the program 3 years, so clearly he's not that good of a quarterback. Do you guys want to see more of Devin Brown? Are you good with rolling with Kyle McCord? Where are you guys at when it comes to Kyle McCord and Devin Brown? I will say I thought Devin Brown was going to play more on Saturday. But the fact that he did it, Ryan Day can tell us publicly that this is a neck and neck, that they're both going to play, so on and so forth. But he also said the way the game was going, he didn't believe that it was a good opportunity for Devin Brown to enter. To me, it sounds like Kyle McCord is the starting quarterback. Devin Brown is the backup until Kyle McCord proves otherwise.
I want to see Devin Brown more. The only reason why is if you're going to play him. Mm-hmm. Don't just put him in for a series. Let him get a rhythm underneath his and like these are the games to do it. These next 2 games, like, he needs to see the field. You need to see what you have out of Devin Brown these next 2 games, and take advantage of this week's schedule, because we cannot be rolling into Notre Dame and have question marks at this position. Like, Notre Dame is strong at one position that we are not, and it is quarterback. And so, these next 2 games, we need to see Devin Brown see at least a 60-40 split. He needs to get at least 40% of those snaps, and then we can kind of know what we have going forward. And I think that would make Ryan Day a little bit more confident, the fans a little bit more confident, knowing what we have in our quarterbacks. But I will say, if Devin Brown outperforms Kevin McCord, they are going to be calling for McCord's head.
I just really, this week especially against Youngstown State, I feel like you just got to hope the Buckeyes are up like 4 or 5 scores at halftime, and then you can just give the ball to Devin Brown the whole second half and be like, dude, it's your team. Go do what you need to do.
Well, and I thought they were going to do that this week in Indiana. I thought we were going to get up big and then let Devin Brown go in there and take control of the offense, but it never got to that point because we couldn't score.
See, now at what point do you put Devin Brown in the game, you think, this week? Just with, I mean, how much do you think Ryan Day wants to be up comfortably that he feels that he can put Devin Brown in the football game?
It wouldn't surprise me if he starts this week.
I don't like that call.
It wouldn't surprise me, and not because of McCord, but just because if we're truly still in a quarterback battle, like, you have to give him a start in these next 2 games. And whether it's Youngstown State or whether it's the game after, I think, who do we play after Youngstown State?
Western Kentucky.
Yeah, so Western Kentucky. Whether it's one of these 2 games, you have to start him and see how he handles that, because worst case scenario, he's the starter in Notre Dame. Something happens to Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord just plays terrible. Like, worst case scenario, he's going to be our starter. So, like, we have to see where he's at, especially because it is a battle still. Day hasn't said this is our starter for the year. He said this is our starter for week 1, but our backup's also going to get a lot of playing time. So it seems like they're still competing.
This is tough, man. I just
you see what I'm saying though, right? Because
I see what you're saying. I
we can't be confident.
Think you give Kyle McCord the first half. If it's a competition, I think more so you give Kyle McCord the first half, Devin Brown the second half.
No matter what the score is. So let's say we're up like 10 points at half or something. You give Devin Brown the keys to the car no matter what?
Depends how Kyle McCord's playing. if Kyle McCord is playing well, like if Kyle McCord is playing very well, like comes out, let's say he throws 2 touchdown passes in the first half, throws for 150 yards, 4 incompletions, something like that. I think I've seen enough out of Kyle McCord, like to give him this at least another week to start him.
But, so you're saying if he doesn't play good, you're keeping him in the game?
If he doesn't play good against Youngstown State, then I have concerns.
That's
Truly.
right. You still have to see Devin Brown on the field because
You do.
What we saw this past week was I mean, there was no rhythm to the offense. They put him in there. They ran some garbage plays, and then by garbage plays, I mean they ran the most predictable QB sweep of all time on third down to try to, like, everybody in that stadium knew that we were running a QB sweep or a QB sweep.
They did.
Like,
they did.
They flipped it out. That linebacker for Indiana is really good too.
Yeah.
Casey, he's a dog, but
he's a stud, man.
Yeah, I have to see Devin Brown this week. I have to see him for at least 40% of the snaps.
I think
consecutively. I can't see like one drive.
No, I don't like that either. Like, if you want to do by half, I'm good with that. Do Kyle McCord the first half, Devin Brown the second half. But I'll tell you right now, if Kyle McCord looks average or below on Saturday, then you got a really tough call to make. Do you put Kyle McCord out there for the second half to try and get him confidence, or do you put Devin Brown in the football game? And that's where I'm glad I don't have to make these decisions, but it's tough, man. It really is, because Kyle McCord didn't go out, obviously, and light it up by any means, and I think you stick with him. Like, I think he should start this week. I really do. If he comes out, though, in this game and doesn't look good, you might have a problem. Like, if Kyle McCord comes out against Youngstown State and looks very average against an FCS team, Houston, that's when I might sound the alarm that we have a problem. And then you go Devin Brown, and you better hope he's good.
We just got to open the playbook up too, though. That was another thing.
I think that's a big part of it. I don't think Ryan Day was trying to overcomplicate things for McCord in his first start, but man, he can sling it, and we have playmakers, and he can get him the ball. So, like, we really need to be aggressive with our play calling going forward. And I think we'll see a little bit more with this game. I think that talent discrepancy is so big. We could be, horrendous on offense and still win this football game. So I think we'll be a little bit more aggressive. But just looking at the top 10 teams in college football, Georgia's got a new guy. Alabama's got a new guy that is a stud.
Penn State's got a new guy.
Yeah, Alar's really good. Caleb Williams, Jordan Travis for FSU. And then we watched Sanders just tear it up for Colorado. There's some really good college football quarterbacks, and a lot of teams that are in the top 10 that have their situation squared away. So it makes me really nervous looking at our schedule and not having this addressed yet, and not feeling confident in it as a fan.
You better be very confident in who your guy is going to be against Notre Dame.
You have to be,
dude.
You have to know who your guy is after this week.
This isn't Notre Dame of last year either. This is a really good Notre Dame team.
Sam Hartman is legit. For everyone that's watching, Sam Hartman is a legit quarterback. He is a guy that if Notre Dame loses one game, they will be in the college football playoff conversation. They might be all year. He's that good. He can carry this Notre Dame team. It's not like last year.
There's a really good chance that if he would have declared for the draft, he would be on a 53-man roster right now.
For sure.
100%.
For sure.
And 100%. So, this is an NFL quarterback that they have playing behind center. 6-year senior. He's been through it. He's the all-time leading passer for Wake Forest. This guy's really good. And we don't want to get into the Notre Dame game yet, but that's our next test. Or that's our first test this year. And if we don't have this quarterback room squared away, if I don't feel confident going into that game, it's going to be a long season.
We're extremely lucky that Notre Dame's not until week 4.
Yeah.
If they were week 2 like Oregon, dude, it's wraps. If we have to play a top 15 team next week, we're losing. That's just how I feel, honestly. So we're very lucky that we have 3 weeks to figure our stuff out because, week 4 is going to be here before we know it.
I will say we've been talking a lot about the offense, but the defense looked exceptional on Saturday. They struggled with the rush. I don't think they were expecting that like Navy style shotgun option that Indiana was running. So I think that threw them for a loop there on the first couple drives. But after that, it was smooth sailing for the defense. They didn't force much. I don't know if we forced any turnovers in the game. But it was pretty dominant from like the third drive on. So I will say that they might have to carry us this year, which is scary because the offense has been pretty explosive the past decade, and our defense is the one that's been struggling. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, for real. I do want to talk about the defense, but JD, you brought up a good point that we do need to hit on the offense. Ryan Day's play calling, again, it was very conservative. You wonder if that was just because new quarterback. Ryan Day also, his play calling in past years has been very questionable, I would say, in certain situations. This wasn't the Ryan Day that we saw against Georgia, that for the first time really looked, he had some fire to him. A lot of great play calls. And the question, this is the last question about the offense, because again, we could spend all day, I feel like, talking about this offense. And I feel like at some point we need to talk running backs. But that said, Brian Hartline's now your offensive coordinator by title. He was debating giving up play calling this year. Would you guys like to see maybe even against Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, would you like to see him hand over the play calling? Because I think right now, Ryan Day needs less on his plate. Give it to the guy that honestly one day might be your next head coach. What are your guys' thoughts on Brian Hartline calling plays?
Yeah, so funny little story. My mom came up yesterday. We were talking about the game, and she's like, "Yeah, it's so weird. They didn't mention Brian Hartline's name at all on the broadcast. And he's the new offensive coordinator, and they didn't even say his name." And I was like, that's a really good point. He's kind of flying under the radar as our offensive coordinator this year. I mean, we talk about him a lot on the show just because of he's such a good recruiter for our offense. But he's the guy. He's the vice president of Ohio State offense, and he has an authority in that room with the players. I would really like to see him call plays. And we've seen it in the spring game a couple times, but never in game action. So I would like to see it. Who knows? Maybe he just is garbage. But I think Ryan Day struggles with calling plays that lead to a reaction of the defense and then taking advantage of that, like with a play action or something. He's very out of sync with his offensive play calls. Nothing's ever in rhythm. Yeah. Nothing ever catches the defense off guard. If we're going wide, we're throwing the ball. Mm-hmm. If we're handing the ball off, it's like if we're giving the ball to the running back, there's no play action. Yeah. And play actions are usually like, let me show the ball real quick and then we'll drop. And there's no fakes. I don't know. It just seems very stagnant sometimes with his play calling. So I think same thing with the quarterbacks. If we're going to do it these next 2 weeks and see what we have, see how the offense looks, how it flows, and then go from there. This year, especially, like we need to take advantage of these early games and really see what we have, because sticking with the same system with the new players might not work as well as it has in the past.
Yeah, man, I'm all for it as far as letting him call plays. I even thought once he was named offensive coordinator, that was what was going to happen anyway. Yeah. It just makes way too much sense at this point. I mean, I don't think they're on the verge of losing him. We'll never know if he actually interviewed for that Cincinnati job or not, because there have been conflicting reports on it, and he's never directly said yes or no if he did. But it makes you wonder, why would they not let him? Why would Ryan Day not let him call plays at this point? It just doesn't make any sense to me. He's your offensive coordinator, and I know there are many situations across college football and the NFL where the head coach still calls plays, and it is what it is. But when you're trying to keep, and I do say this, trying to keep one of the best assistant coaches in college football, you've given him the highest title you can. You have to let him call plays, because at some point, let's say Ryan Day continues to call plays and Ryan Day continues to be here at Ohio State for the next 2 to 3 years. Is Brian Hartline really going to want to just be offensive coordinator, not call plays? And if an opportunity arises, I know we've had that discussion too before, but if an opportunity arises that really intrigues him, like, what then is keeping him here? Because you've given him the highest promotion. You got to let him call plays.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like I was saying, he's number 2 in charge right now on the offense. You know, he's an equal with Jim Knowles, but he's young. He is probably next in line. If Ryan Day ever decides to take like an NFL job, Brian Hartline's next in line for that head coaching spot, but just with his age, with his pedigree at playing at Ohio State, you know, like I said, he's in charge of the offense. He's the guy. He's the guy that is going to step in there and be the next head coach of Ohio State. Like, but we have to see what we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with the Hartline, man, I feel like the offense would be way more opened up, because I know if you listen to Ryan Day all preseason, even after the game on Saturday, he's really preaching how they want to run the football. They want to run the football. They want to run the football. I'm like, I get it. We got a loaded running back room. I understand. But, dude, you got 5 stars everywhere out wide. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka should be catching the ball more than 4 times. Like, that's just it. I mean, you could force feed those guys and just throw the ball to them every freaking play. I don't care. But I feel like it's just got to be a lot more. Just let it rip, man. Just let it rip. Honestly, I love our running back room, and there's a time for that. But these first 3 games, I don't want to sound redundant, but we got to figure out our quarterback. So just let him throw the ball. Let him throw the ball 30, 40 times. I don't care. Just open it up, and I think we'll see it eventually. But I know right now Day still wants to have control, but hopefully that's almost up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we are going to move on to the defense, because they were the bright spot on Saturday. Gave up 3 points to Indiana. Now, I will say Indiana really didn't act like they were remotely ever going to do anything offensively. I don't know really what their play calling was on Saturday. That's a whole other subject. I don't know what they were doing. But the defense looked absolutely fantastic. As far as on the defensive side of the ball, Steel Chambers led the Buckeyes with 6 tackles, 4 solos. Tommy Eichenberg up there as well with 4 tackles, 3 solos. JT Tuimoloau had 4 tackles, 3 solo. He was actually named as Defensive Player of the Week. The Buckeyes named him Defensive Player of the Week. But guys, on the defensive side of the ball, we didn't force any turnovers. We only had 1 sack, which is really surprising, even though Indiana, again, didn't really act like they were going to throw very often at all. So what do I have to say for you guys? What impressed you most about the defense on Saturday? Before you guys take it away from me, I think it's pretty obvious. Denzel Burke looked like the freshman Denzel Burke that we saw. I know Cam Camper isn't like going to be one of the top 10 receivers in the country or anything, but he is one of the better receivers in the Big Ten. Denzel Burke completely shut him down, and Denzel Burke looked like one of the best defensive players for the Buckeyes on Saturday, and that has to continue all year if the Buckeyes are going to win a Big Ten title.
Dude, the first thing that I noticed right out the gate, just the intensity that dudes were flying around. Like, there's a couple times like Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers. I mean, they were laying some hits, dude. And our D line was, like you said, TJ, there weren't a ton of, we only had one sack, but I felt like our D line was pretty dominant for the most part. There's a couple times early where Indiana made some plays, like you said, with the option that probably caught them off guard a little bit. But I thought Sonny Styles, dude, the way that he runs down and flies down and runs support, I thought like once they figured out the option thing, he was running to the quarterback every time, and it was a quick pitch because no one wants to get hit by that kid coming downhill. But I just thought the intensity all the way around was just up there. They were amped up.
Yeah, Sonny Styles is going to be a superstar. Easy. No questions asked. That man's supposed to be a true freshman this year, and he looks like a man out there playing football. So that's my biggest thing. He looked really great. I think the reason we didn't get a sack, they only threw the ball 20 times. The quarterback that was in the game, the majority of the game was Jackson. He only threw it 5 times when he was in the game. And then Sorsby threw it 16 times. So not a whole lot of opportunities to get a sack when you're only throwing the ball 20 times as an offense. So I think just everything I saw from the defense was what I wanted to see. And I'm really excited to see this group going forward. It's really, at this point, can the offense catch up to the level that the defense is playing at? And then can we surpass that on offense and put points on the board so our defense doesn't have to win us games? And that's pretty much it all comes back to the offense, but the defense is doing their job. So.
The one complaint I had, maybe it's not even a complaint, I would just love the answer. Explain to me how CJ Hicks plays one stinking snap in this game. Like, listen, I get it. Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers are going to play the majority of snaps. Like, I understand it. Jim Knowles likes to run mainly 2 linebackers on the field. But one thing that started to happen at the end of last year, Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers really got worn down. They were playing injured. Why? CJ Hicks is young, athletic. He needs to get on the field more. And I was surprised to play one snap against Indiana. Really surprised me. I don't know what you guys thought about that. If you thought that was interesting. CJ Hicks, I thought, was someone that was going to break out this year. But being behind Eichenberg and Steel Chambers, if he's playing one snap against Indiana, I don't know, man. I'm just really surprised by that. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
There was even a point where we had a backup defense in there. And so the fact that he didn't even get out, I don't know. Maybe it just didn't warrant him being on the field with that offense that Indiana was running. Maybe Knowles sees him more as a pass defender, and he kind of just figured like, hey, we have the ultimate run stuffer down there with Eichenberg, and Steel Chambers can cover sideline to sideline. We don't really need Hicks to play right now. So maybe there's going to be a lot of things that happen over the next 3 weeks. Where we'll kind of gauge both sides of the ball. So I would definitely look out for CJ Hicks to get more playing time these next 2 weeks and just see how Jim Knowles is using him, because it could be completely different than what we were expecting.
Yeah, I agree. I just thought it was baffling that he only played one snap. At least get some dudes some rest, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, Jordan, you're right. We're going to see him a lot probably the next 2 weeks, hopefully, anyway, because the kid can make some noise. And, all preseason, that's all we're hearing about is how much damage he's freaking doing in practice and camp and everything. So, he'll be out there eventually. Just like you said, Jordan, maybe they just didn't think it was the right fit.
I would say this schedule right now is perfect. We just have to take advantage of it. Like, how many teams get to start the season with three pretty mediocre opponents?
Michigan.
Michigan always does, but but we usually have a tough game in the first two games of the year. So this is really set, especially with us kind of, I wouldn't say we're rebuilding, but we have a lot of fresh faces playing. So this is a really good way to ease ourselves into Notre Dame.
Yeah, it is. Because again, there's not really much to talk about with the defense because they were the bright spot from Saturday's game. Before we do go around the country and look at just recap the scores from this past weekend, the position that really we found, I mean, we knew we had depth at this position, but someone that really showed up on Saturday, and he didn't even do it with necessarily a lot of touches, but the Buckeyes might have something in converted linebacker to running back, Chip Trainum. What were your guys' thoughts on him? Seeing him as really, Mayan Williams got the touchdowns, but Chip Trainum out-carried Mayan Williams. Mm-hmm. He only had 3 less carries than Travion Henderson. And Chip Trainum looked the best out of all 3 backs on Saturday. So what are your thoughts on the converted linebacker? Because he's a guy that maybe we need to start thinking this guy, I mean, given his size, speed, agility that he has, this is a guy that honestly could be more of a running back one.
Dude.
Well, it's crazy. The way that we talked about how they were going to use this running back room because it was so deep.
Yeah.
And Ryan Day was like, they're all going to get touches. We kind of had Chip Trainum as an afterthought. Mm-hmm. And then he was number 2 getting snaps at running back on that first drive.
Yeah. I mean, dude, he came over from ASU, and you look at his stats at ASU, they were crazy at running back. So the fact when I first heard about him when he came over, that he was coming to play linebacker, I'm like, well, that's weird. And then we had a bunch of guys get hurt, and then he's returning kicks for us. And like, well, he can do that. And then I was like, well, Travion's hurt, and we don't really have like an RB3 kind of. So it's like, well, let's throw him in there running back and see what he can do there since he did it
in the Michigan game last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and it's funny because we all kind of overlooked him because we have Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson and Dalen Hayden. We got all these guys, and Chip Trainum was just kind of the guy. I was like, oh yeah, he's still on the roster, but we didn't know that he was going to be RB2. So it was a nice surprise because I mean, he runs hard, he runs downhill, and he gets there.
I would say his size definitely stood out for his speed. He's a big back. Yeah, he's huge. But the way they're using him and Travion about the same with the offense and the play calling. And Mayan Williams just seems to be the guy that is in there to get the 1 or 2 yards. So goal line or short yardage, like they're bringing Mayan Williams in, which I think he scored a lot of touchdowns that way last year. So I think he's kind of like your power third down back. And then they're just going to interchange Henderson and Trainum. So I'm not mad at it. He looked really good.
Well, I think the more time Travion can have relief, and as long as he still looks fresh, I mean, that's cool with me. I'd love to just have him a whole year healthy again like he was when he was a freshman and just see what he does. Because, dude, his freshman season, we tend to forget. It was insane. Yeah. So I'm just hoping that he can stay healthy all year, and Chip will be a good duo. Those two can go back and forth.
Travion was one of the top running backs in all of college football his freshman year. People only forget him because he was injured. They're like, well, all right. Might not be good anymore.
Would you say that he has a really similar career as J.K. Dobbins did at Ohio State? Because I feel like Dobbins had a really strong season. He got hurt, came back, had a really good season again, not as strong as his first breakout year, went on to the draft. So I think Travion, we could see something very similar. He had that really strong freshman season, gets injured, not as strong, comes back this year 3, has a really good year, goes to the draft, gets second or third round pick.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I can see that comparison because that actually makes a lot of sense. I would say the difference is there was a lot more as far as like just coming out of high school. There was more hype around the prospect of Travion Henderson's caliber as opposed to J.K. Dobbins. But the comparison makes a lot of sense because J.K. did suffer that injury. Everyone kind of wrote him off. Very similar to Travion Henderson. We even had the question, would he even be the starter this year? Or would it be Mayan Williams? It was pretty obvious in this game. Travion is the guy, and I was actually incorrect. He only had 4 more carries than Chip. The way the carries ended up was Travion Henderson had 12, Chip Trainum had 8, Mayan Williams had 7. Of course, he had 2 touchdowns off of that. So
short yardage, baby.
I think that's what it's going to look like the rest of the year. I think Travion Henderson, you're going to want to be mainly your home run guy. I think the big concern, though, and since we are talking running backs, it really flows into this next part, because I realize we can't talk today without talking about the offensive line. And this offensive line, guys, listen, I get it's one game, and I mean, I'm not overreacting to Kyle McCord and kind of his mediocre performance. This offensive line, though, is a major concern. It was a major concern going into this year. It doesn't matter who's quarterback. It doesn't matter who's running back. This offensive line is going to have to get better, or else the Buckeyes aren't going anywhere this year. So how concerned are you guys about this offensive line moving forward?
I'd say slightly to almost like above average concern. I don't know. I mean, I feel like our running backs were getting hit a lot, like in the first level. I feel like our running backs really didn't have a chance to get to the second level, at least in between the tackles. Between the tackles, we couldn't get anything going. When we were running the outside zone and getting outside, I felt like we had a little bit more success. But, I mean, between the tackles, we could not get anywhere. I mean, there was a couple times. I mean, it's 3rd and 2, and we're getting stuffed. I mean, that happened more than once. So, I mean, I'm concerned. But, I mean – they're all fresh, so it's going to be a minute before. But again, back to the schedule. We got 3 weeks to figure this out, and 3 weeks to get better, 3 weeks to get reps. So, I mean, I feel like, as long as they're playing every day and they're getting better, I feel like by the end of the season we'll be fine. But we just kind of expedite it a little bit before we go to Notre Dame.
And I think a lot. So with the quarterback in the line being so fresh, so new to this offense. Granted, Kyle McCord has been in the offense for 3 seasons, but I think a lot of it is having confidence in your protections that you're calling as a quarterback, and just making sure that you're putting your offensive line in the best situation to succeed as well. And with just everyone being so new, we have, I think 4 new starters on the offensive line. So it's going to be no offense, no team in the country can plug 4 starters into the offensive line and be dominant immediately. So I'm not super worried, but it is something to flag and be like, hey, let's keep an eye on this as the season progresses, especially as fans, because God knows we don't need our quarterback to start playing well and then get hammered and hurt, and then we have to restart it all over again, because that's a recipe for disaster. So let's keep that guy upright.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm probably more concerned than a lot of people, and I think the reason being, when I see our best offensive lineman who's supposed to anchor this offensive line, and even as a projected first-round pick, early second-round pick, Donovan Jackson performed as the worst offensive lineman against Indiana. I have to admit that does concern me, because this is the guy that's supposed to be the anchor, the one guy on this offensive line that we know what we're getting from him every single week. I hope it's just a bad game and that's it, but he looked brutal. I mean, the amount of times that he let Travion Henderson gets a carry and already someone's in the backfield. We could not run in between the tackles at all this weekend whatsoever. It's early. It is. It's got to look better against Youngstown. Listen, I'll say this. If everything doesn't look better against Youngstown State, then yeah, I'm freaking out. Honestly. If at Western Kentucky it still doesn't look better, then we have some problems. So
our schedule's not easy this year.
It's
by any stretch of the imagination. It's not easy.
It's tough. It's tough for sure.
It's a rough schedule for sure. But yeah, definitely concerned about the offensive line. But hey, maybe we'll learn something against Youngstown State. It's kind of hard to say that we really will because it's Youngstown State. No offense to them, but they're an FCS opponent. Anyway, as we're wrapping up, kind of just the post-game analysis of the Buckeyes Week 1 win over Indiana. Anything else you guys want to add before we kind of go around the rest of the college football landscape and review the scores from this past weekend?
A win is a win. We are 1-0. That's all that matters.
I know we won by 20. It wasn't like it was a close game.
Yeah. It wasn't.
I'm not
pretty.
I'm not stressing out.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. We're 1-0 on the road, Big Ten opponent, a lot of transfers. So like, I'm justifying it in my head that we only won by 20.
It also doesn't help. We followed the most exciting college football game of the year already.
Literally.
With Colorado and TCU. Absolute banger. We're definitely going to talk about that here in a second. But it doesn't help. We went from that exciting game to the lull fest of Ohio State, Indiana.
Yeah. And the thing that's just about our fan base that of course obviously we love, but we have a love-hate relationship with. If the Buckeyes don't beat somebody by 40 points, that means we basically lost the game. We suck. We lost the game. Yep. Didn't win by 40. Oh, season's over. We suck.
We're not going to contend for a national title this year. How can we expect to win a national title if we just beat Indiana by 20 points? That's almost 3 touchdowns. It should be 6.
Oh, too good, too good. All right, boys. So just recapping some of the scores from this past weekend. Not going to go over all of them, but some ones that kind of stuck out. Of course, Utah beat Florida 24-11 on Thursday night. They really got the week started. And then the next one, of course, it stands out. JD, you kind of led us into this. Coach Prime goes into number 17 TCU and beats the Horned Frogs. Now, what is significant, Colorado's had about 85 transfers come in, completely new team, new coaching staff, new basically everything. TCU, of course, was the runner-up last year to Georgia, got absolutely dismantled the title game. But nevertheless, still a really good program. Colorado was projected by many people to win 2 games this year. And they went in and proved that they're not going to be a pushover this year. Thoughts on Colorado? I think they're the main team to talk about. Thoughts on Colorado?
Travis Hunter's a dog.
Travis Hunter, Heisman hopeful. He looks spectacular. He looks like he's going to be a future number 1 pick.
Bro.
Deion Sanders, he might actually have something there. He might be a good football coach. Shadur, or how do you say his name?
Shador.
Lit it up.
Sanders, dude, he's not overrated by any means. That dude can play football. He's quick with it. He's decisive. He's got a really good arm. He's mobile in the pocket. I was super impressed with him.
Exposure level was crazy too. Just how he could just sit there and kind of scan the defense. He never looked like rattled. He just kind of stood in the pocket.
4 of his receivers went over 100 yards. He was spreading it around.
And then his running back have 2 receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown?
He was one of the receivers that had over 100.
Crazy.
Edwards. Offense is exciting. They're a little small, but it didn't matter in that game. They looked really good.
Hopefully that USC Colorado game's gonna be a banger, and they got Oregon too. So it's gonna be fun to watch them through the season, how they compete with some of the bigger boys.
Yeah, for sure. I think first off, not only is Travis Hunter a fantastic football player, Chris Gamble paved the way for him. But former Buckeye Chris Gamble paved
the way for him.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
no, listen. It's just cool to see people remember Chris Gamble, and what he did as a college football player, because a lot of people forget that he was played on both sides as well. I think the big thing with Colorado, how long can Travis Hunter do this? The dude played 115 snaps. What I'm saying is when you get later in the season, how will his body hold up? That's what I'm curious about. And a lot of people are.
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine.
We'll see, man.
Post game, he said, I'm
He's
ready to go. Yeah, I'm good.
do this all day. I'm not even tired right now.
Dude, he's not going to act like he is, though. Let's be real. He's not going to be like, oh, yep, I'm exhausted.
It's crazy, dude. Because, I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I was like, yeah, they'll probably – I picked TCU to win that game. I was like, yeah, TCU's going to – I think they're going to roll at home. But whatever. It was fun to watch. It was exciting.
It was. Colorado is going to be a force this year. Even if they don't win a ton of games, they're going to be fun. That's fun to watch. There's no doubt. But some other games that kind of stood out. Washington absolutely destroyed Boise State 56-19. But Boise State really hasn't been the same program since Chris Peterson left a couple. Huh?
Michael Penix, Heisman Hope, dude.
Yeah.
Dude,
He's got a great arm.
He's a dude. All the quarterbacks in the Pac-12, honestly, I mean, there's a ton of good quarterbacks in that conference. It's actually crazy.
It's crazy that conference won't exist next year.
I know. I mean, just the quarterback play all the way around it's pretty good over there.
It's kind of sad the conference isn't going to exist next year. It really is. But that's a whole other thing.
I didn't make the decision, TJ.
Hey, I didn't either. I
Hey,
had nothing to do with it.
quick take on the Pac-12 quarterbacks. One of those guys will win the Heisman this year. You can book it. One of those guys.
Sanders, Williams, Penix.
Yeah, I would not be shocked if Penix is up there at the end of the year. So just something.
The dude might throw for 4,500 yards. Like,
Yeah.
He's also 30 years old. So.
I know. It's like Stetson Bennett 2.0, dude. Just out there slinging it still.
He's like a 7th-year senior, I think.
Yeah, because all the injury and then the COVID year. And, yeah, it's nuts how he's even still playing.
the only thing that's going to keep Shedeur Sanders out of winning the Heisman is Colorado's record. It really that's the only thing that will, because if you think about it with the Heisman, normally it's also a team that's in contention.
Sanders or Hunter win it if they're undefeated at the end of the year.
Oh, Hunter
for sure.
Dude, we haven't seen in our lifetime a player like Travis Hunter that dominant at both positions.
He was making insane catches on offense, making insane plays, pass breakups, interceptions on defense.
Dude, that interception he had in the red zone was crazy. It's like Air Jordan jumped in front of the pass and just snagged it. It's crazy, dude.
Such a talent, man. Such a talent. Another game that really stood out, kind of the final one here. Florida State just absolutely blitzing LSU. I told you guys, I think Florida State, and again, it is one game. They got so much talent in Tallahassee right now. And with their toughest game, LSU is one of their toughest games. They will go to Clemson. Florida State has I think if Florida State beats Clemson, and I believe they actually can do that, they're going to be in the college football playoff this year.
They look really solid too. Jordan Travis, he was just tearing up LSU's defense. And then they have a really good defense in Florida State. And then they were just pouring it on. It was so funny because it was a really close game at halftime. And then LSU didn't score the entire second half. And Florida State's just like, yeah, we're up 24 here. Let's just give up another touchdown.
Dude, I was shocked because, yeah, at halftime it was so tight. And then I didn't even watch like the second half because I'll just keep track of it on my phone. And then I look, I was like, oh my gosh, what happened?
That was bad.
It's just crazy how quickly that game just changed. The fact Jane Daniels didn't have a touchdown still, dude throws for nearly 350 yards, still doesn't have a touchdown. Just ridiculous. But
they showed Brian Kelly on the sidelines, and he's just like,
I mean, that's all you can do, man. Like,
dude, didn't he say like before the game how he thought they were going to handle FSU pretty much, and just said that how he was going to beat them down? Yeah, that always backfires when you.
I'm not a big Brian Kelly guy.
A lot of people aren't.
No one is.
I'm not a fan of that man.
Wait, you're telling me you don't like his fake Southern accent that he does?
It's so cringe. You're like, what up, y'all? Welcome. I'm here in the bayou.
I just had me some crawfish.
Here we have some crawfish with the fine folks at LSU.
Oh, man. Okay. So we're going to end the show with a fun segment. Now that we have college football back every single week, we're going to be putting out our top 10 every week. This is not going to be like basically just because of the AP top 10 or the college football playoff top 10 coaches poll. It's not necessarily going to be an exact replica of that. We're going to have our own rankings. So, Nick, we're going to start off with you. Your top 10 rankings for the week and kind of your thought process behind it.
I got pulled up. Yeah, I was gonna say. So Georgia, Michigan, pretty much top 4 stayed the same. I mean, they all won. That was pretty much my basis on that. I moved Florida State up to 5. I'm pretty sure that LSU was at 5 before, so I pretty much just dropped LSU out, and Florida State went up, and then USC, Penn State, Washington, Clemson. Clemson stayed at 9 because they played tonight, obviously, so I didn't want to jump to any conclusion with them. And then I dropped LSU to 10 from 5 just because I figured they lost to a top 10 team. I think Florida State was 8th, so I just dropped them down, pretty much just swapped them out. But, I mean, the top 10 is going to stay pretty bunched up for the first couple weeks until we start getting into conference play and a couple other games that are coming up. I know like Texas and Alabama, that's this coming weekend, so that's going to be an interesting game to keep an eye on. But yeah, my top 10 pretty consistent with what a lot of people are probably going to have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. JD, you're up next. Your top 10.
Yeah, so pretty much the exact same as Nick's, other than Alabama jumps Ohio State for 3. The only reason I put Alabama above Ohio State at this point is they have their quarterback situation figured out, and they have a really good quarterback in Jalen Milroe. He's the first Alabama quarterback in school history to throw for 3 touchdowns and rush for 2. He's a dual threat. He probably runs a 4.3 40. That dude can fly with the football in his hands. So they're a pretty scary team. They're a completely different offense than they were last year. And he looks really good. So I'm going to have them jump in Ohio State, but it's pretty close, 3 and 4 right there. I was really impressed with FSU last night. So I think they deserve that number 5 spot. But I don't think Ohio State did anything that really hurt themselves this weekend. USC, Caleb Williams is a dog. He's going to keep on making the most insane throws known to man until somebody intercepts his freaking passes, because he's like no looking, fading out of bounds, somehow completing 60-yard touchdowns off of his
fumble snaps.
Yeah, back foot. He's not even looking. He's just Hail Marying Johnny Manziel down there. And then, he's fantastic, but someone's gonna get him, I think, this year. I don't think he's gonna go undefeated at USC this year. Penn State's looking good with Alar at QB. Rounded out LSU. They probably shouldn't be in the top 10, but I don't think there's really anybody else that should be right now at this point in the season. So they stick in the top 10 for me.
Okay. And now mine is going to be very different. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because there's a team that made a statement this weekend, and that team was Florida State. Now, nothing against the other top teams or anything, but every year we see a game like this at the very beginning, and that catapults a team higher in the rankings, much higher than normally you would think they would go. But I do believe at this point in time, the second best team in college football is Florida State, right? As of right now.
Just because they have a better win than anybody else.
They have one of the best wins. I can't put them above Georgia. I can't, because that's too much. Florida State right now is the second best team in college football based off that win against LSU and doing it in such a dominant fashion. I think they're loaded on offense. Getting Keon Coleman from Michigan, freeing him from Michigan State is huge. Georgia's still number 1 for me. They blew out. I don't even remember who they play. I don't even care. They blew out their team this weekend. Michigan, number 3. 4 Alabama, 5 Ohio State. Yeah, I have Bama over Ohio State. Alabama's going to be tough with Milroe. They are. Good luck defending that. Defending that offense. They're weak at wide receiver, weaker than they've been. Milroe helps make up for a lot of that. They've never had a quarterback like him. You could say Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts did not have Milroe's speed as a rusher. So Alabama's going to be really tough. Ohio State's 5. There's a lot of questions still with the Buckeyes, but they didn't hurt themselves. I thought about USC over Ohio State because USC is just with Caleb Williams is very dominant on offense, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah, their defense.
They still don't have a defense.
Yeah,
they played a lot better on Saturday against a tougher team. So
San Jose State hung in there for a minute. I was like, oh my gosh, this USC defense is booty.
San Jose State low key has a decent team.
Yeah, they're pretty tough.
But Penn State 7 for me. Penn State might win the Big Ten title. We'll talk about that more another time. Washington 8. They're going to be very good as long as Michael Penix stays healthy. Biggest question mark there. Clemson 9. They haven't even played yet, and I'm going to just assume they're going to win. That maybe I shouldn't do that. I put Tennessee at 10. The reason I did that, I'm not putting LSU at 10. You got destroyed on national TV for week 1. They didn't impress me. I take them out of the top 10 at that point. Tennessee looked really good against Virginia, very good against Virginia. So I think right now for me they're 10. I would have LSU at 11 and Texas at 12 if I was making the rankings. But anyway, those are our top 10 rankings. So let us know what you guys think. Whose rankings do you agree with? Who do you disagree with? Which of us do you think are geniuses? Which of us do you think are really stupid? Want to hear all the comments. What do you want?
Just waving real quick. I just noticed this. I thought it was funny. In your top 10, there were, if we take the new conferences of next season, it was SEC, Big Ten in the top 10, with USC, Washington being in there. And then the only team that wasn't in the SEC or the Big Ten was FSU.
And Clemson.
Oh, yeah. I keep thinking they're going to the SEC for some reason.
They might, man. You never know. But, no, it's funny to think like that because that's very soon that's going to be the future. SEC and Big Ten are going to dominate the top 10 and college football like we know. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in this episode of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. As a reminder, be sure to drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're brand new to Network 216. Trying to reach 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We're so close. We're less than 100 away. You can help us reach that goal here. We really would appreciate that support. We will be back, of course, on Saturday morning for your Buckeye pregame show, Ohio State versus Youngstown State. There won't be a lot to talk about, but just kind of what we want to see and hoping to see from the Buckeyes on Saturday. So, again, thank you for tuning in to episode 23 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Can't wait to talk to you guys all again here soon. And go Buckeyes.